This is Gemara Metziah Daf Ayin Gimel, and we pick it up on the bottom of Ayin Beis. Amid Beis, we are 2 lines from the bottom. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara, quoting a case as we discuss more scenarios of when payment is made, whether it's made at the time of the goods being delivered at a later date, and at what point it's going to constitute ribis due to the fact that you're getting a cheaper price for paying up front, etc. So says the Gemara, Tanur Rabban, if someone is transporting a package, a bundle, from one place to the next, and in the next place he can charge more. He finds his friend and he says, Tanali. His friend says, give it to me. I'll buy it and I'll pay you. You're going to travel to sell it over there at a higher price. Guess what? I'll pay you the higher price here. The same price you would have got over there, I'm going to give you. Says the Mishnah, says the Gemara, excuse me. As we turn over to Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph, Bershos Moicher. If the package remains in the possession of the seller, it is mutter b'shos loikeach. But if the buyer takes possession of this item after he pays for it, then aser. Case A. Continues the Braisa, hamalech havila, hamalech beirais. If someone is transporting now, it's not a package, but rather he is transporting peirais, mimakam the makam from place to place. And again, the same scenario happens. He's transporting peirais from place A to place B. Why? Because in place B, he could charge more money from them. On the road, what happens? He finds his friends, Vamar Lai, who says to him, Tanaim, Li, give them to me. And I will give you peiros in that place. Why do you have to schlep them all the way there? I'll take them from you here, and I'll give you peiros over there. So halacha is, if he actually has peiros in that place, mutter. Vimlav aser, then it's going to be aser. Case number 3, v'chamarim donkey drivers malin mimakim hayoker limbakim azol, allowed to charge in an expensive place like those who charge in a cheaper place. For those who pay beforehand, and we're not worried that they're getting a cheaper price because they're paying early. So 3 different cases of the brisa. So we take it backwards, starting with the final case. Why are the chamarim, why are these donkey drivers allowed to charge a lower price if you pay up front? Says the Gemara, Rapapa Amar. The reason is, Nichaluhu, they are happy when they receive the money, Demegluhu Taram, because then they have cash on hand. And then when they arrive at the next place, they're going to be welcomed as one with cash. And therefore, they're getting benefit for the money right now. I mean, even though it's true, the real reason they're selling a cheaper price is because they're paying early, but the seller benefits, and therefore it is mutter. Teretz number 1. Ravacha Breder Avika, 10 lines down. The first line is Acha, teretz number 2. Amar Nichalahu, Demoizli Gabayu. Another reason why the seller is happy, because when now they go buy future produce, they'll give them a cheaper price. My Beinayu, what's the difference between these two terutzim? Ik Beinayu says the Gemara Tagra Chadata, a new merchant that people do not know him yet. So he's going to be happier that when he has the cash, because then they're going to sell it to him cheaper. But an older merchant won't have that second teretz reason. Says the Gemara story, in Surah, the item was going for 4 per 4. Bekafri azlin on shita shita. In Kafri it was cost 6. Yav Rav Zuzi lechamra. So Rav gave money to the donkey driver. He said, I'll accept upon any problems, the orcha of the road. And then he paid 5. Says the Gemara, 1 second, if this is allowed because he's gaining right now, Vanishkal Shita, why didn't he just take 6? Adam Chashav Shiny. Therefore, you're right. Batsim says the Gemara, you're right. It is mutter. He could have taken 6, but als Adam Chashiv, he took only 5. Says the Gemara, Ba'iminei. Ravasi me Rav Yechon asks the following shayla. Ma'ulasos begrutiyos came. Are you allowed to do these aforementioned agreements with grutiyos? Grutiyos are pieces of metal, scraps of metal and gold and silver, etc. And the shayla is, when we said prior that you're allowed to pay earlier at a lower price because there's a benefit, was that a din specifically had to do with pay rise? Or is that anything? Even for buying a piece of metal? Amar lei, Pikish of Yishmael Barav Yaisi, Lasso is capable to keep Ishtan. They even want to do this with linen clothing, but V'lo Rebbe. Igedam Pikish of Lasso is big grutius came V'lo Yinicha Rebbe Yishmael Barav Yaisi. So it concludes the Gemara that Eina Chanami, this is only allowed with regard to payrois. Now, what would the chilik be? Chilik is an item which is more in demand, an item which has a quicker selling and buying rate. It's easier to make any of these arrangements because you're not going to get stuck with the item. Continues the Gemara, another case of paying in advance pardesa. We have a pardes, we have a vineyard. Are you allowed to go and pay earlier and get a cheaper price? Rav Asar, says the Gemara. Rav holds it's Asar Shmuel Shari. Now, what's pshat? Rav also came to the Kamei Shavyei Tefei. Says Rav, since in the future it's going to be worth more. Mischaziki argue not delay. It looks like a classical case of ribbis. You're paying a cheaper price because you're paying money early in the guy's usage of your money. Shmuel Shari, even to have a beit tiyua, because lamaisa there are times that the grapes could spoil and get damaged. Lo mechzi kiagar natule. It's not going to look like ribbis, cause not necessarily you can end up getting that which you paid for. Number of Simarchia, that Umayda Rav, even though Rav holds it's Aser, but Rav is Maida, Beturi Dinafish Beseidayu, that when it comes to oxen, when it comes to grapes harvested by ox, Dinafish Beseidayu, there's lots of losses that could occur. And therefore, Rav is masking in that case will be Aser. Continues the Gemara. Amar lu Shmuel lahanu de shivshi shivsha. To those who lend shumshami, those who lend sesame, hovchu ba'ara. He said to them, turn over the ground, so that you have a kinyan in the actual ground. V'lo you have the kalva, because if not, it's going to be like kalva. If you make a kinyan in the karka, then you're able to give them over the item for them to plant for you. But if not, it's going to be ulcer. Amlu Rava lahanu deminatri bagi. Rava said to those who watch the fields, Poku avucha beveidari. Go and turn over the threshing floor. So that you're not going to get paid until after you do this act, this work. And therefore what? And at that moment, he's just giving it to you for a cheaper rate, and therefore it's going to be mutter. Again, another application that if you make a kinyan, you're going to be allowed to take the money in whatever scenario necessary. Says the Gemara, Amrlu Rabbanan l'Rava. 7 lines from the end of Ayin Gimel and Aleph explains the Rabbanan l'Rava Kacham Aribis. They said, Rava, what's going on? You're eating ribis. Why? Dekuli alma. Everyone shakli arba misalki larisa benisan. Everyone takes 4 measures of grain from the sharecropper, and they do it in Nisan. Bamar, what do you Rav? You do not to you wait an extra month, and always amazing. As we're sitting here on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, to have Iyar in the Daf. But it's really Daf from 2 days. Anyways, Mar Natalu ad Iyar, Vishakil Shita. And he takes 6. So you, Rava, seemingly are consuming your ribis. How are you allowed to do that? Says the Gemara. Rava explains. Aton kavidaton. No, Rava said, you guys got it all wrong. Arola aris mishtabid. The land is mishubad to the aris. The sharecropper is the one that's in charge of it. Iaton maslikitu. Lubenisan, if you take him out of the land in Nisan, mafsid luhu, you're causing him a lot of loss. So become a lot. So I wait until Iyar, and I cause him a larger gain, and that's the reason why I'm allowed to give him more money. So Rava says it has to do with the level of benefit that the sharecropper is going to get will have to be in accordance to that which you are giving him. So says the Gemara, as we turn over to Ein Gimel and Beis, the stories we're about to mention are a little bit, we would call them random or sidebar, but of course, these are being mentioned. Once we have one story of Rava, we read down a bunch of other stories of Tanai V'Amarayim. Ramari bar Rachel mashkelehu nachi besa. Ramari bar Nacha, a certain guy gave his house as a mashkin to Ramari bar Rachel. Hadar zavnei l'Rava. So then the guy went and sold that very same house to Rava. Not to Teresa Yarchishata. Ramari waited 12 months. And then Shakal Agar Besa. He went and he took the rent for the house. And Amtalei the Rava, he brought it to Rava. Amr Loho, Ramari said, Hi Deloyamte Lamar Agar Besa. Adinna. Why did I wait 12 months to pay for the rent of the house? Because as we've seen previously, the stam terms of the usage of a mashkin is 1 year. So I had this as a mashkin, and therefore the stam was I was allowed to use it for a year. And now he says to Rava, if the guy wanted to tell me to get the house back within the year, I wouldn't let him. Hashta, therefore, lishkal mar agar beisa. So therefore, says Rava, for the first year I was allowed to live there rent free, but now let me pay you for it. Now I'm going to give you the rent of the house for the upcoming year. Amar le, Rava responds, says Rava, I didn't know. I bought this house with the guy. I didn't know that he put it up as a security prior. If I would have known that it was a mashkin tura, I would never have bought it. But now, says Rava, we're going to paskin like the goyim do. That what? As long as they don't evict the lender from the area of the mashkin, lo yishakal agar bisa. They're not allowed to take rent. Anonami, says Rava, lo shaklina mincha agar bisa ad demaseklinu lecha bezuzei, until you get your money back. So says Rava, I would never have bought the house and I feel terrible. Now that I did, I'm not going to do like the Jewish law that we have seen, which is that it's only 12 months that the Malva gets to live on the area of the Mashkin. But after that, he has to pay. Rather, Rava says, I'm going to do like the Gaisha court, so therefore you, Ramari bar Rachel, do not have to pay me rent for the house. Continues the Gemara, Amle Rava mi bar Nishle Ravashi. About 15 lines down. The first one line is Chazi. Chazi mar de Rabbana and Kachli Rabita. Look, the Rabbanim are eating ribbis. Tavi Yizuzi Acham Rabba Tishrei. They give money for wine in Tishrei, and then they take the wine in Teves, seemingly paying earlier and getting a cheaper price. A classical case of ribbis. Amar Le Ravashi explains, it's true they pay for wine. Achala lo yavi. They didn't pay for vinegar. Meikara, the chamra, the chala, the chala. What is now wine is now wine. What is now vinegar will still be vinegar, and therefore hushaita, hudikam mevachri. It's considered as if they got it in Tishrei. Explains Rav Ashi, it's true that they're only taking the item many months later. But Lamaisa, that which was wine stayed wine. That which is vinegar stays vinegar. And therefore, says Rav Ashi, it's no problem. It's considered like they had a kinyan back when they paid for the wine. Similarly, Ravina Akra Deshanvasa. Ravina used to give money to the people of Akra Shanvasa early for wine. Kufita. And they would pour out for him a container more. For the fact that he paid earlier, they would give him more. I'll give it to Rav Ashi. Amrlei, Mishari, how's that mutter? Amrlei in, yes, it's mutter. Achulu to come achli gabach. They're meichelit. Amrlei asks Ravina, are allowed to do he? But the land is not theirs. These land, they took possession, these people of Akash and Valsa, they took possession because people didn't pay taxes, etc., but it's not really their land. Omar Lei, Ravashi responded, Ar letaska meshavda, it's not true. Land is meshubbed for taxes. O Malka Omar Mandi Yohiv taxa. And the king has said, whoever does not pay taxes, Lechol Aram, then they're going to take the land, and therefore this was all done appropriately. Another story. Says Rabba Rava Chazimar, Hani Rabbanon. So look at the Rabbanon Diavizuzi Akari Dinshi. That what are they doing? That they're paying the taxes for other people who can't afford it. Umishabdi Behutfei. And then they're taking those people as servants. But says Rabba, it's not right. It's very good to pay off someone else's taxes, but how do you go and just take them as an evid afterwards? Amar Lei. So Rava responds back to Rav Papa. Hashta ichu shechivu lo yamr l'chu milsa. If I would have been iftar, I would not have told you this thing. But that what tachi amar Rav Sheisha, so said Rav Sheisha's mirukaya dani betavsa de malk excuse me. Maharkayu dahani, the seal of one's avdos, of one going and becoming an eved, betavsa damalka monach, is lying in the king's treasury. Umalka amar, and the king has said, Mazal yav karga lishtabed leman diyav karga. So explains Rava, it's not that the Rabbanim were unlawfully or illegally taking these people as avadim. Absolutely not. This was the gzera of the king. And one last story, Rav Su'oiram, Achvua de Rava. Rav Su'oiram, which was Rava's brother, Avitakev Inshi, Delay Malu. He would grab people who were not appropriate, people who didn't do the right thing. Malu Begur Haika de Rava. And what would he do? And he would bring them to Rava, and he would make them work in Rava's estate. Amarle Rava, says Rava, Shabarkav Hadata, you're doing the right thing, the Tanina, because we learned in a Braisa. Reisa Sheinai Noye Kshura, if you see a person not acting properly, how do you know you're allowed to enslave him to make him correct his actions? Talmud Laimar, you should make them work in your brothers. I would think maybe you're allowed to take any person as an evet. That it's only when one is not acting in the right way. So says the Gemara, that's why they're allowed to grab these people who are acting incorrectly and put them into avdos, in order that, of course, they learn from their ways. Pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.